Let's talk to that situation with House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. Mr. Leader, great to have you with us tonight.
Good to be with you as always, Ed. Thank you.
Isn't it a good thing to be able to go home and say that we are saving lives with this health care reform that we passed? Isn't this a historic move? Yet there are some Democrats that are running from it. Steny, why is that happening?
Well, I think that the American people expressed concern about health care. However, as you know, in the debates, both McCain and Obama said if elected, they needed to reform the health care system. They've changed their opinion. Senator McCain seems to have changed his opinion. However, we know that 50 million Americans without health insurance is costing our nation and is putting lives and health care at risk. We've adopted a system, Ed, that for some reason people say is smacks of socialism. It's an interesting thing. What we did was we created a market so that private sector insurance companies can transparently offer their products and services to the American people. It seems to me that's pretty much the American way, and what we're ensuring is that all Americans will have access to affordable health care, and if they have trouble, we're going to help them. And what CBO says is that we're going to save $175 billion through that program over the next decade, and the decade after that save $1 trillion. And as I point out to people,
all of the things you're talking about, you're absolutely spot on. But there are some Democrats who are going back to their district, and they seem to be afraid to say that. In fact, there are some who have taken out ads saying that they didn't have anything to do. They didn't support the health care reform, and they're actually running from it.
Well,
what do you make of that?
Ed, the fact of the matter is, obviously, each candidate campaigns on what they believe, but clearly our party and the president has put forward a plan which we will believe is good for the country, good for the health care of our people, and will save us money. So from all of those standpoints, we think it's a program that will work. Now, we have 3 years to make it better before it fully goes into effect. But let me tell you, there's nobody that I talk to that doesn't want to make sure that insurance companies can't tell them, no, sorry, we're not going to insure you and your family because your child has diabetes or he has asthma, or you're not going to be precluded from changing and going into business and creating a business of your own and jobs simply because you have a pre-existing heart condition and won't be able to get health care. We think this is a very significant positive step forward, and we think over the years Americans are going to come to that conclusion as well.
And the case has to be made undoubtedly to the voters that the Republicans, if they get the majority, are going to reverse all of this and wipe it right out. This legislation saves lives. They want to wipe that away, all for the God almighty dollar. Now, let's talk about the money.
Can I just say something on that? Let me just say something. Because an awful lot of the Republicans are campaigning, they want to repeal. The American public, however, have made it very clear they don't want to repeal. They want to make it as good as they can, but they don't want repeal.
What about the Bush tax cuts? Why are so many Democrats caving in on the Bush tax cuts? Why isn't it a strong strategy to go home and say, we think the super wealthy needs to pay more and the middle class folks deserve the tax cuts? Why is that such a hard case to make, yet there are so many Democrats that are caving in on this?
Well, I'm not so sure how many Democrats are taking the opposite position, but we've made it very clear in the House and in the Senate among the leadership, and the president's made it very clear. We're going to make sure that the middle-class workers do not get a tax increase. However, the deficit is looming large. That is a significant concern of ours, and those who can help pay and bring that deficit under control need to, and it's not going to adversely affect the economy. The President of the United States, and this has frankly been Republican policy since I got to Congress 30 years ago, Republican policy has been to cut taxes on the wealthiest in America, and they would grow jobs. In fact, they opposed a program in '93, the Clinton plan, and said that it was going to blow a hole in our economy because it raised taxes on the upper 1% of America. In fact, as you know, that was the best job-creating period in our lifetime under President Clinton's economic program.
Congressman, now, there's been a lot of conversation about the suggested political strategy to go out there and connect the Tea Partiers with the GOP. Do you agree that that is the right way to go, or would you shy away from that?
Let me tell you, the GOP is connecting itself with the Tea Party positions. So we don't have to connect them ourselves. The Republican candidates are doing that already. And when you have people saying we ought to do away with Social Security, that, as you just pointed out, Mr. Miller, unemployment insurance is somehow unconstitutional, that we want to go back to the policies that failed so badly, not only in the last administration, but previously, to bring our deficit down.
So, Steny, the GOP and the Tea Party are in the same sentence. You can't parcel them out.
I think it's clear that you see the Republican Party being very closely aligning themselves with the positions of the Tea Party and their candidates. And very frankly, it's clear that those candidates are having great success in their party.
And finally, what are you going to do to get the base out? There's conventional wisdom out there that the Democratic base is somewhat deflated because the majority didn't go far enough. Now, I know you guys in the House passed a bunch of bills. You passed a bunch of bills in the House. The Senate is a totally different animal. It's been a record number of filibusters. What are you going to do to motivate the base to show up? Because if they don't show up in droves, you stand to lose the House and the Senate. What do you say to the base?
There's no doubt that our base needs to come out. And our base needs to come out because we're really at halftime here. We're not at the end of the game. The president rightfully says we found ourselves in a very, very deep ditch, the deepest ditch that we found ourselves in our lifetime, Ed. And the president and the Congress have been trying to dig out of that ditch. And as you pointed out, we're making progress. The stock market is up 60%. That means retirement savings are up 60%. You pointed out in all but one of the last 8 months, we've gained jobs in the private sector. We've gained more jobs as opposed to 3.8 million jobs being lost in the last year of the Bush administration. So yes, it was a deep hole, and we're digging out, but we still need to keep on focused on
you got to ask the base to come out, don't you? You
have to ask the base to come out.
Steny Hoyer, great. Yeah,
and very frankly, let me tell you another thing I think is happening, Ed, is I think independents, the Gallup poll came out today, Democrats are now 1 point up in the Gallup poll. And I think what's happening in this country is independents are looking at the alternatives, whether it's Tea Party candidates or Republican policies with respect to privatizing Social Security, retreating from regulation of the banking industry. I think they're figuring it out, and I think they're coming our way.
Great to have you with us, Steny Hoyer.
Always good to be with you, Ed.
You bet. Appreciate your time. Coming up, Psycho Tea Partier Christine O'Donnell.